Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
Doing wonderful. How about you, Eric?
Doing fantastic.
Sunshine and then clouds and a little rain. Now it's sunny again out here, but I am so looking forward to our guest today, who's a longtime networking friend of mine and sometime business collaborator in Janet Johnson. So it's going to be a fun afternoon here.
Absolutely. Janet has what I consider a fairly unique way of looking at things. So, Janet, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Eric and Chip.
So, Janet, you're a financial coach. Why don't you give our listeners a little bit about your background? Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Okay, sure. So I come from a family-owned business. My parents opened a factory when I was about 12 years old. And what makes my family so strange and so wonderful is that as a young kid, as a middle schooler, they had me answer the phone. And they had me answer the phone, close deals, talk with some big customers, confirm orders, and just be a general customer service person. So because I've talked with so many people before, anywhere from buyers to vendors to suppliers or prospects, what I really love to focus in on when it comes to working with my own small business clients is communication and really understanding the other person, meaning what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and also what are their potential roadblocks when it comes to perhaps maybe closing the deal or maybe going out there and marketing their business in a big way. So that's how Sacred Money Archetype comes into play with all of this.
All right, so tell our listeners what Sacred Money Archetypes are and how you use them.
Okay, well, archetypes is another way to say personalities. So Sacred Money Archetypes, there are 8 different archetypes. And each archetype has its own strengths, its own gifts, and roadblocks as well. So when we can understand the person's archetype or personality, it helps us kind of, as a coach, know how to help them in a deeper sense. For example, everybody says, oh, I want to grow my business. I want to make, $1 million. Well, we can easily tell you how to do that. I think any coach can tell you how to do it. But if you're feeling, a little iffy when it comes to your confidence or perhaps your relationship with money, that's going to kind of throw some challenges into play. So if you'd like, I could dig in and give you some examples there.
Yeah, why don't you give us some examples of what these archetypes are?
Okay, so of course I like to start with myself because I don't want to, feel like I'm picking on anybody here. But one of the archetypes is called the accumulator. The accumulator is the person who's kind of like has the bookkeeper mind. They love the spreadsheets and they're really frugal, right? They like to really count their money and make sure that they have enough for savings, which on the surface, that looks great. But on the flip side, sometimes for me as an accumulator, I have to say I can be really frugal sometimes, frugal to the point of hurting myself. And let me give it a quick example and, ask me questions if you'd like. But I recently had an experience where there was somebody who said some xenophobic and racist things to me. And because I had paid money to be a part of the group, a part of me was actually like, Janet, you paid, $600, $700 to be part of this group. If you leave, you're just throwing all that money away in the toilet, So just that worry, not everybody worries about that, but an accumulator certainly does. We worry about wasting money. So with the whole situation that happened, it ended up that I'm choosing to leave the group and I'm going to a new group. So no big deal. I'm not losing money. So the accumulator in me didn't have to freak out that bad.
I think it's important to note that each archetype has pros and cons. There's no best archetype for somebody to be. These are just characterizations of how you relate to money. And, even though there's pros and cons, they're not about blame. They're not about, oh, you can't do this. They're simply a definition of how you and your money relate.
Yes, that's absolutely it. And let me give you another example that I have with a client who's a Reiki master. So she's actually an alchemist. She's kind of like, the social justice warrior, right? But with her, she often feels a love-hate relationship with money. She wants to grow her business. She wants to serve a lot of people, but at the same time, she feels funny charging money. So as her business coach, part of my job is to help make her feel, empowered, or, that she can definitely do that. So what we've done is helped her flip around and think it's not just about charging people money, it's about making money so that she has more to donate to the causes that are meaningful to her. And so that's the benefit of understanding people's different personalities, is that we can kind of figure out what their key motivator is. So they're not kind of scrambling. When it comes to coaching, and Eric, we like to kind of dive in and really help somebody so that they get unstuck.
Yeah, I would imagine that you run into people. We've talked about two of the archetypes, but I'm sure a lot of people you deal with have combinations of several archetypes.
Yes, absolutely. So let me share. I want to so let's take a peek at one of my other archetypes. Again, I don't like picking on anybody, but one of my archetypes is the nurturer, where I love to take care of other people. I love to make sure that I'm generous, that I'm giving people amazing value when they work with me. So that's all good and said, but oftentimes I tend to have bad boundaries. Sometimes I let people kind of run over what I say the first time around, and that's something to work on. So that nurturer in me conflicts with the rebel. The rebel is the maverick. They're the ones who want to charge forth. They want to pay attention to the numbers and taking risks. But at the same time, the maverick is kind of like a go-getter, and the nurturer is kind of the hand holder. So there's two parts of myself that fight right there. So it can be kind of tricky, but I think as long as you know what your top 2 or 3 archetypes are, it gives you a really good understanding of like what's going on and why you're having trouble making decisions sometimes.
Yeah, and you learn about people by having them fill out a questionnaire or asking questions to kind of assess exactly where they are. Talk about your process.
Oh yes, definitely. So there is a quiz that I give out. I can actually give you guys a link to the quiz, so you can send it out to your listeners, and it's a self-scoring PDF quiz. And if they want to have a further reading, by all means, they can reach out to me. But at the same time, when a person learns what all these different archetypes are, what makes it really fun, the better you know them, is that they don't even need to take the quiz. You can just kind of watch them and see how they interact with other people, or how they, show up in the world. And then you just know what their archetype is. So I have a coach, for example. She's a celebrity. She has the big blown out hair and the sparkly microphone, and the fancy pink suit. And so she is a celebrity. She loves to be on stage. So for me, as a person who's studied these sacred money archetypes for 5-6 years, I can definitely tell what kind of people, what kind of archetypes certain people are.
That's fantastic. And I think something that, we need to focus on is the fact that all of these are about the relationship with money and how people think of money. And a lot of folks don't realize what their relationship is, or some of the things that have influenced that behavior over the course of their lifetime. Um,
Mm.
Certainly for older folks that, lived through the Great Depression, you saw an unwillingness to, to spend a lot. They were very careful because they saw firsthand, oh, it could all go away. And for a lot of them, it created a fear. So understanding how the relationship has been created and what that relationship is absolutely crucial for them to move forward.
Yes, absolutely. And it's also all about being empathetic and having compassion for the person who's living out of that fear, like, for example, when we're talking about the people from the depression, it sounds like you're talking about accumulators there, and some challenges that accumulators face is that, they have a lack of trust when it comes to money. They struggle with being generous. Sometimes they can be obsessive or impulsive when it comes to money. Not always, but it can happen. And sometimes they feel guilt or doubt about investing. And so, as a coach, it's really, really, really important to see, the sides that, yes, there are those challenges, but they also have their gifts as well. They have, let's talk about their gifts. So they're very good at saving money, right? They're very, very good at creating financial independence, and they're also financially responsible. So put this person in the same community with another individual who struggles with those same gifts. So when those two people work together, my goodness, that's a powerhouse right there. They can help each other so much. And that's what communication and confidence and connections really are, is helping one another. So, yeah. You know what? Let me tell you about the ruler. Do you mind?
Go ahead.
So the ruler, this is one of the reasons why I love doing what I do. Because my dad was a ruler, right? And so my dad started our business in the early 90s. And then when he retired from the business, he didn't really retire. He basically just went to the Philippines and started 5 other businesses. So that wasn't a real retirement. But what happens with certain people who have that ruler archetype is that they really burn themselves out, right? They don't enjoy life in the moment. They feel like there's never enough and that they're chasing after a moving target. And it's great that they have this idea of creating an empire that can help, all of those people in their family or their community. But at the same time, they sacrifice their health and their family and their personal life. So that's partly why I decided to become a coach and to become certified with Sacred Money Archetypes for those rulers. Because you know what? There is a way to build a business without having to sacrifice your life to do it. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, it's so important to find that balance. But I'm going to push back a little bit on something you said. You said your father went to the Philippines and started 5 other businesses, and that's not retirement. Okay. I've dealt with a lot of folks. We actually do retirement coaching to help people figure out what they're going to do in their retirement. And the biggest problem retirees face is suddenly stopping doing things, and it's detrimental to their health. It's detrimental certainly to their finances, but for a lot of people, exactly what you're describing is the perfect retirement. It's stopping what you were doing before and doing something new. So I think we need to be very careful when we define retirement. It's not necessarily stopping. I mean, sure, there are loads of people that want to retire and play golf and that's all they want to do. And that's fine for them, but that doesn't fit everybody's needs.
Oh, it certainly doesn't. I fully agree with you there. And I think that when a person retires, I think it's important to also, talk with their life partner and make sure that, whatever retirement looks like for them matches, kind of connects with their life partner. So my dad, he started a bank, and he started let me see, all these different plantations from coconut and rice and pineapple and calamansi And he started all these fish ponds with tilapia and bangus, which is a milkfish, and jumbo shrimp, like the size of my head, jumbo shrimp. That's his retirement. But it wasn't my mom's dream of retirement. And so, I fully embrace people to go and have the retirement that you dream of. Just kind of check in with your life partner and make sure that they want that too. My mom loved eating that shrimp, I have to say. So did I. Like actually counting and managing the shrimp.
Yeah, I think I want to change what I want for dinner tonight. But anyway, I mean, it's so important to really have your why as far as why you're doing it. I mean, if your dad was just there to make more money and so on and so forth, as opposed to pursuing passions and so on. By the way, I think he should probably write an autobiography about everything that he's done. I mean, this sounds fascinating, but it's so important to be doing it for the right reason. And obviously talking with your significant other while you're doing this is really, really important. And but the cautioning, don't burn yourself out and that kind of thing is very, very real also. So you got to find that happy medium, but it has to start with really what your passion purpose is.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you say that, Chip, because when I was, very little, probably even younger than kindergarten, my dad used to talk to me about owning an island, and it would have bananas on it and monkeys. And I really used to have this dream of just laying in a hammock on a tropical island and monkeys handing me bananas. That's what I
Nice.
imagined, right? And then so come to, I'll be, how old was I? Probably like 19, 20, something around there. Then my dad, basically bought almost a good half of a good island, and then he had bananas and he had all these different fruits. I saw one monkey, but that was it. And I didn't get to lay in a hammock. But it's really funny that you said that, because when it comes to purpose, even though he didn't tell me what his purpose was, I think what the vision was in his mind came into reality, because it took a good 20 years, but it still happened. And I like that.
Yeah, that's something to also for people to be aware of. There's no such thing as an overnight success. Overnight success takes years. And he obviously had that image in his head because he shared it with you when you were a young child. And to have that kind of focus is really important, because you're working towards that goal. And if you can envision it, you can make it happen.
Yes, absolutely. And what's even more fun is that you don't necessarily need to know the how. Sometimes it just folds open that way. One of the gifts that he ended up falling into was when he was on a piece of land. He was building a house, and he noticed all these kids around, all these kids not going to school, just running around and playing. And my dad said to the person he bought the land from, he said, why aren't these kids in school? And it came to be that the school district didn't think that they needed a school because those people were too poor. And so he ended up building an elementary school. The house that he was building ended up being the temporary elementary school. And then when they got funding from the town then built a school up the hill. Then at the same time, when they were building the house, they found an underground spring underneath that piece of land. So with that spring, they're able to supply fresh, clean water to all of the schools in the school district. So all of that, it came from a vision, right, Eric? It came from some sort of purpose that we didn't fully know.
Yeah, and you never know where it's going to go. That's just an amazing story. And you yourself have had quite a career path, because I met you doing a few different things back when you had the manufacturing company, back when you had your accounting business, and then I didn't see you for a couple of years, and now you're doing this. And you had a couple of years where you just kind of got back to yourself and transitioned from point A to point B. So tell us about that journey, because I'm sure a lot of people are going through that too.
Oh, sure. So, Chip, you and I, we grew up in our family's business. And, back then, I never heard the word money mindset. I never heard of that before. I was just working, it didn't matter if I felt nervous about money. What mattered is actually talking to the customers and taking care of them, and then, so I was raised in a house where, money was not something that was a bad thing to talk about. It was just a normal part of daily life. And then I think, Chip, when we met again was when we were doing the training for the small business owners. And I realized like a lot of those small business owners never really had a safe space to talk about money, in their home, or perhaps maybe they didn't take an accounting class in high school or college. And it was really an area that was sort of like poo-pooed, and that's why I decided to teach this, because I don't want anyone to ever feel like this is something that they're definitely bad at. It's true, they probably weren't taught about it growing up, but that's okay. That's fixable, And then let's fast forward here. So a few years ago, I took a break from my business, and it was one of the best choices I ever made. And guess what? I decided to become a part-time bookkeeper. And people laugh at me because for me, like in my strange little universe, bookkeeping is like meditating. It's very soothing to me to see, 1 + 1 = 2, or reconciling to 0. And it just feels really good to me. I don't know. I'm just strange, but that's me, that's my journey. But not everybody has to have that. Not everybody has to be like that. And I don't encourage everyone to be like that, because it's a little bit strange, honestly.
Well, no, you shouldn't think of it as strange. This is just what worked for you. And I understand what you're talking about. My first job out of college was in investor relations, and I ended up running the IT department for the New York office. Now, the company I worked for was located in Chicago, and all of the account executives had databases of their contacts that had to be entered. And the process was that they would fill out a form to have the people entered into the database. And you have to understand, this is, the early 1990s. So entering into a database wasn't as simple as, what people think of now.
Yes.
But they had this process at the company that all of these forms had to come to me. I had to sign off and approve all of the forms and then send them to Chicago, where they would enter it into the company's main database.
Oh, my goodness.
Friday afternoons, when I did not feel like working and I'd had it with the work week, I would take the stack of forms and just start approving them. And I found it so relaxing to just approve the forms.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Like, sometimes there's tasks that really, let us just be, just be in the moment. Let's be mindful. And I love that part of bookkeeping, just like you love the data entry, the approvals of it. So I getcha.
So yeah, I mean, so everybody has something that they do that relaxes them that might not relax anybody else. But that's something that's important for people to understand, that they need to find their own ways of doing things. And that includes how they relate to money and how they deal with money. And I've had this conversation with a number of clients over the years when I'm asking them, okay, so, what do you need to bring your business to the next level? And they go, well, I need money. It's like, well, no, you don't, because the money isn't what brings you to the next level. It's what the money can buy. Money is just a method of getting there. So you have to take that step forward and go, okay, well, it's not really the money that I need. It's whatever I'm going to get with that money. What's that?
Yes. And I love that you said that, because it's so true. You know, everyone's always thinking, oh, I need cash. You know, I need it right now, and everything in my life will be better. But that's not always true. I think a lot of it begins with, you know, having that confidence and really knowing yourself. And like you said, you know, just how I feel a little silly being a bookkeeping, meditative kind of person, you know, I shouldn't feel that way, because if I wasn't that bookkeeping, meditative kind of person, I couldn't have helped, you know, my family achieve the vision that they created in the Philippines, you know, and so it's all connected. And that's why I love doing what I do. It's cool.
Exactly.
I mean, actually, as you know, I have a degree in accounting also, and mine was BC, before computers. And even back then, where you used calculators and pencils and pre-formatted statements and all that kind of stuff, and I had, for my company that did $6 million of sales a year, I really enjoyed putting all that stuff together too. But boy, was I happy when Excel came out, and then accounting software after that.
Chip, did you have to wear the little green visor?
Oh, no.
I put that on, but I couldn't see, so I took it off.
Oh, no. I'm picturing one of those big adding machines, or maybe like an abacus. Like, you know.
Yeah.
There you go. Yes.
No, we did have those big brown things that people used, basically to estimate jobs and things like that too. But mine was just like a little the calculator with the tape stick spitting out of it all the time. So that you had to attach to everything to prove things out. So.
Sure. No, I remember the green paper. So, you know, the green paper.
Sure.
The ledger paper. Yeah.
I'm right there with you, Chip. I never wore the green visor, though.
No, I didn't either.
All right. Well, we're coming up on the end of our time. So, Janet, if somebody wants to get more information about Sacred Money Archetypes or get a hold of you, how can they do so?
Sure. They can find me at mymoneypivot.com. And for any of your friends, Eric or Chip, if anyone wants to do a free Sacred Money Archetypes reading with me, because it's you guys, I would be more than happy to do it for them. They just have to say, hey, I'm a friend of Chip's, or hey, I'm a friend of Eric. And then we can get on the phone and do that for them.
Fantastic. Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway for our listeners this week?
Well, first of all, it's great to get back together again with Janet. And it's, basically money is the thing that you have to put in perspective. We talk about this all the time when we're talking about personal strategic planning or whatever. But, where money fits in, it's not the main goal, but it is a facilitator for other things that you do. So I think what you're doing by identifying these archetypes is putting the whole package together so people can understand where that fits in. But as we talked about before, it starts with your passion and purpose and why you're doing things. And once you figure yourself out and your behaviors, obviously, I'm sure what you're doing for them, Janet, is going to go a long way to making money that really, really good facilitator that everybody's looking for.
Yeah, I think for me, the big takeaway is to understand how you relate to money. And, there are pros and cons to everything. When you understand it, you can relate to money more, in a more healthy manner. Money isn't the goal. It's not something to be avoided. It's simply a tool that gets you where you want to go. And when you understand that and understand your relationship with it, it becomes so much easier for you to move forward. So thanks for being here, Janet. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts. You can also find us on the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.